ones missing are Bob and Karen. Got approval of the agenda? In favor? Approved. Second. Do we have a public hearing? I don't think we have a public hearing. No public hearing. Do we have any citizen or public comments at all? Okay. Approval of the minutes from February 17, 2002 regular meeting and March 3, the 2022 work session. You guys have an opportunity to look those over.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
All right, very good. The only correspondence I've gotten is from Jen Tiller, that booklet that I gave you guys out. She's given some options and some suggestions for playground equipment. So obviously put a little bit of effort into that. So it's definitely worth looking over and reading. I think when we meet again, we're going to talk about that with the possible playground equipment we're going to purchase for Morton Park.
Right, the way you left it at your work session last week was, I'm going to work on budgets and try to get some options. When we get that information compiled, then we'll bring it back to the commission to review.
Okay, do you want to take that from Jen then? It's just for, I don't know if you need it at all to look at.
She already gave me her budget numbers, but
Oh, okay. I just got that today, so do you want to take a look at that and see if it fits into any of your plans or
Okay.
For the equipment purchase? So that's the only kind of correspondence I've got. Any committee reports at all? Like none? All right, old business. I don't think we have any old business too. Basically, our main purpose is here to talk to you guys today about your presentation. So we've got Brandon.
Yep.
Brightside Design Group. Yeah, if you want to come up.
I don't know if this will work now.
and then where's our little screen guy?
Oh, view. And then, there you go, full screen. There you go. I don't know if this works though.
It goes opposite of what you think. It goes backwards.
I wonder if,
Up is down, down is up on the button.
It's very
okay, this will work, okay. We unplugged the clicker for the thumb drive, so we're just gonna go with the mouse.
There you go.
You're lucky this is being recorded on television.
That's right. That's right.
This
Okay.
could be for everybody to see.
The whole world is gonna see this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my name is Brandon with the Right Side Design Group in Manistee. I've also got Chris with Engine Creative out of Ludington. He's working with us pretty closely on the design development of this project, and then Tim Riley, Century 21 Boardwalk, not Century, Boardwalk Vacation Rentals. He's also the CVB board chair, representing the CVB here tonight. So this is a Convention and Visitors Bureau project that is funded by the CVB and also with an almost 50-50 match grant with the USDA, Rural Business Development Program. So the focus of this project is cultural tourism. In 2013, we started this project at the CVB level with my agency and the staff and the board of directors there at that time with the marketing committee to focus on gathering the assets of our historic properties throughout Manistee. It's really about trying to create a log that's what it really boiled down to, is trying to actually formalize and locate where all of these sites actually are, partially for cultural tourism, but also from a historic preservation standpoint. 2015, we applied for our first USDA grant that we received that created the first comprehensive guidebook, along with the marketing and promotion, and then the video inventory of a lot of our sites that we have. On the website right now, visitmanisteecounty.com, there are over 30 actual video tours of a lot of the historic sites that are featured along there. There was a pretty big PR event a while back. It's been quite a few years now, but Tony Trucks volunteered and she narrated a good portion of all of the videos, and it has been a pretty large driver of our cultural tourism economy for this specific region. So moving into this final component is really the completion of the project. And it was always developed that way when the first grant was applied for, was that there was going to be a comprehensive project that was going to include route signage, expansion of the project to include tribal origin stories, along with ideally this founders or ancestral beginnings piece, which was all to be determined when we applied for the grant. But that's what we're showing you today as the home of this project. So there's the components that are up there right now for this specific project that we're working on. There's a historic sites guide, the origins walk, which is what we're going to talk about today. There's route signage that's still to be determined in the marketing and promotions efforts that's going to take place following the completion of this project. And it is a very large project. It's about $150,000 total with both CVB and USDA funding. So the real position behind the Origins Walk is to establish a physical location that celebrates the people that influence the origins of our community. So this is really the big tie of it's not just the people who founded the region. That was originally the intent, but through the process of working closely with the Historic Society, we're working very closely with Mark Fetter at the Manistee County Historical Museum. In addition, we're working closely with the Tribal Historic Preservation Department as well to make sure that everything is accurately depicted and conveyed throughout this entire project. The Origins Walk is really designed to be a physical installation and a place where people can actually go to see and read about the actual original formation of the area, why it's here today, and major milestones that occurred over time to how we arrived to Manistee and the surrounding community being what it is today. So it's kind of one part history, one part sculpture. And the interesting piece behind this is that it's morphed from this idea of being a plaque on a pole. So instead of just having a walk with what you would typically see along a sidewalk or a colonnade of here's a pole, here's a plaque, here's a pole, here's a plaque, and you just kind of make your way. This is designed to be much more sculptural and engaging on our waterfront downtown or at this selected site. When we first applied to USDA, the CVB reached out to find out what possible site location we could utilize. We knew we wanted to utilize the Riverwalk just because it's already a natural tourist draw to the region. And there's already 19 markers that exist on the Riverwalk today that talk about a lot of the industrial history that occurred along the riverfront throughout the history of our community. When it came down to it, this made the most sense, especially given the fact that this aerial is older, but the stabilization work that's been completed right there, which is the lower photo, we really felt that this was an ideal way to enhance what has been done to truly create this as a destination at the kind of end of the Riverwalk. I mean, knowing that yes, the Riverwalk runs all the way to the stub pier, but a lot of the locals consider the end of the Riverwalk kind of this apex right here. So there's two components to this. One is the Origins Arc and then the walk itself. The walk features the people and the arc features more of the evolutionary history of our region from glacial formation to today through more artistic installations. This is some of the preliminary concepting that we've been working on, and I don't need to be the only one up here talking. So if anyone has any questions or anything, don't hesitate to jump in at any time. Or Chris, that you want to throw, because Chris has been working very closely on this entire project with our office and the CVB. When we first met with the city, we met with Ed, Brandon Prince, I believe Linda Beaton was there. We met Tim, you were there, city representation, CVB representation, met to discuss this actual site. And then we got into some of the materiality. What should we use? What can we use based on the maintenance of the property, maintenance of the site? And steel was thrown out as something that was, an advantageous material because one, it's got graffiti-proof quality in that if someone does vandalize it, it can be pressure washed. If you hit it with a weed whipper, it's not going to mark the base up. And so Core 10 is what we opted as the preliminary working material that we have right now, primarily because it also works well within the waterfront, just the patina of the actual sheet piling that is along our waterfront. This blends in a natural way with that. and there's not any major maintenance at all that needs to happen to that.
Actually designed, it's called Optum Weathering Steel, and it's designed for outdoor installations, planters, municipal things like that. So it's fairly ballistic and it stays beautiful over time as it continues.
So looking at the materiality, and then we go into the actual walk itself. So when I mentioned the Origins walk, so there's going to be 20 ground-mounted sculptural plaques that are about 4 feet off the ground. The plaques will take on this form, and you'll notice the profiling that is in there. So each individual placard that represents a person will actually have a physically cut profile of that person that we're representing.
Oh, so they're not all going to be the same.
They won't.
They'll be individualized.
Yep, so it will be individualized. Based on Chris and I's walkthrough, I think about 11 o'clock is when I would want to go down there to view it, because the sun hits the sidewalk just right, where the actual founders are about 6 feet tall along the walk. So the profile actually projects with the sun along the walkway, so you have a very nice artistic representation of the people as you walk along that sweeping archway out to the pier heads. Each one of those placards, you'll see that little white marker that's there. That white marker is actually the placard itself. So this placard is just a rough mock-up right now. There won't be that much information on it. We're working with Mark at the Historical Society and Tribal Historic Preservation Office, Jay Sam, as well as Glenn Zering, who is integral in the tribal government for quite a few years. He's also working with us to, work on content development, because that's part of what he had done there when he had worked there for many years. So each placard will have an overview of the individual person that is displayed, and the position behind why we're considering them an influencer and what their life was. A lot of this is also going to be referenced inside the historic guidebook. So the historic guidebook is actually going to be about 144 pages when it's done. There'll be over 130 sites when it's completed. And most of them are going to feature historic photos that have honestly not really seen the light of day a whole lot. So a lot of the historic shots from when some of including this building, was constructed will be featured inside of that historic sites guide. And some of the people that were either behind the construction of that or influential in a block or a construct, whether it's a mill, those sites will accompany some of these people, so there's a tie between the walk and the guidebook itself, if that makes sense. So inside the guidebook, there'll be reference to experience the Origins walk at First Street Beach, where they can then learn more about the people themselves.
Where will they purchase those guidebooks?
They'll be for free through distribution, through the CVB, through multiple distribution points throughout the county, as well as local museums will have them
free. That's nice.
It's a
On the web.
Yeah, it'll be a thick book when it's done.
Yeah, I take it also be available on the online.
Oh, yeah.
So people could actually look at it on their phone.
Yep. Yep, so the individual route maps themselves will have QR codes that'll actually go to interactive travel maps. So what they are, they'll be PDFs that are actually mobile optimized for your phone. So when you click through the PDF, you'll be able to click to the site that you would like to go to.
Oh, cool.
And those route markers from the original slide where there were those 4 pieces, the route signage is something we're not really going to talk a lot about, like really at all today. But the route signage component is going to be installed throughout the county at specific areas along the route where there's high pedestrian foot traffic. Because we can't really mark 130 sites, and if you live in some of the historic districts of Manistee, you'll see those placards that still exist on a lot of the homes. Instead of trying to do that, we've identified some sites already to get some preliminary buy-in from the owners, because they have a high pedestrian foot traffic, just pedestrian flow through those areas. So as they happen upon this, they'll be able to see it, and then from there they can either pick up the guidebooks that are there. If there are none there, they will be able to access all the digital content through the CVB's website. From here, we move to the Origins Arc. So the Origins Arc is comprised of 5 essentially key components: water, life, settlement, industry, and sustainability. So when we talk about water, we talk about going way back. So we're talking about glacial formation, like why the Great Lakes is a thing, and the importance of water and what it is. Life, to really, it's the first tie that we get into the sturgeon population, which is very important to the Origin people here. that's where Glenn and the Historic Preservation Department have provided a great write-up that we can include in the guidebook and on the placards that'll be accompanying these as well. That really gets into, okay, what is the importance of life in the Great Lakes and why it created then settlement, which is the next plaque, which then moved to, from that settlement and expansion of trade came modern industry in the 1830s to 1870s, and then from there the sustainability aspect, kind of tying it again all the way back to water, and that is that without water, we probably would not have the community that we have here today in terms of commerce, shipping, pleasure boating. I mean, water is a major tie to that. These are going to be larger in construct. These are going to be about 7 feet tall, and there'll be an opposite piece that sits directly across from it around that walkway as you come off of First Street and then down towards that convergence point of the kind of river walk where the boardwalk used to end, which has now been redone with the concrete. The renderings here will give you a little bit better view of what this would look like. So as you swing around that bend, these will actually radiate out from a common point, being that larger boulder that's there. Talking with Brandon, when we came up with these original concepts, I contacted Brandon at the city garage, and Jeff, I don't know, I mean, how much he relayed to you during that, but I'm talking about the Corten steel, having it be weather resistant, and then offering where the areas got a little bit tighter, especially on some of these pinch points around these tighter arcs, having some of the dune grass that is also, I would call more of a happy accident. We had the dune grass rendered in here, and then seeing how the new Riverwalk restoration was completed with the dune grass. This will actually be a very nice tie from that to this. So having those dune grass plantings in key locations, just where it would be tight to get in with any kind of mower or anything of that issue, this would make it, ideally trying to make the site as maintenance free as possible, while picking up on the natural elements of our coastal community, which is also extremely important from the tribal component to this as well. Another look, this is perched up about 12 feet in the air. If you came off of the new Riverwalk right at that corner where you kind of bend away, the poplar or the beech trees aren't rendered in here, but you'll see as you kind of walk up, that larger placard that you see there would be really that large overview of, I was walking on the Riverwalk and this showed up, what is it? That's where that description would really be, to bring people to a point of, okay, what is it that I'm experiencing and how am I experiencing this, and what is the intent here? Again, bringing in natural elements with the low maintenance dune grass components, plantings, and then those entry points. So there's really 3 identified entry points that we have. One that would be coming from the west to the east, coming off of the First Street sidewalk, and then coming off of the kind of former the end of the Riverwalk, right at that point in the upper right corner. So with that, I'll want to turn it over to you guys. I'll probably have to come back here to figure out how to go backwards.
How did the list come up with the names of the individuals that they're going to recognize on those plaques? Is that just a joint submission?
A lot of it came from the Manistee County Historical Society, just because they're looking at the. Oh yeah.
I got yelled at. They can't hear you when they.
Looking at, so the Manistee County Historical Society is the one who really identified a lot of those names, but it's also based on some of the architectural components as well. So some of the key buildings that are listed throughout the guidebook itself, those names were also really kind of shortlisted for that list of influencers, because that was part of the original intent, or that was some of the feedback that we had from a lot of consumers that used version 1, if you will. Okay, it's really interesting. I see the Ramsdale Theater, the Ramsdale, Inn, who's TJ Ramsdale.
Right.
So, some of those are just a natural fit, which also happen to be fairly influential people within the community. But a lot of it really boiled down to, again, it's one of the reasons we got away from the name Founders and went with more origins and influencers, because these are the people who truly influenced very interesting, whether it's projects, socially advanced and, you know, progressive thinking at the time, trying to be inclusive of both male, female, and then tribal origin people as well, all making sure that everyone felt there was good representation. It's hard with this sort of project because you're always going to leave someone off the,
Sure.
you know, carved metal plaque.
I think a lot of,
The names that you're gonna be doing, or is
We
that
do.
still
Yep.
developing?
Tim, I think a lot of that came about when the city celebrated its sesquicentennial, the 150th anniversary, and the museum started several different pieces of work to go back and look at when we tell the story of Manistee to celebrate this event, who are some of those main people, and I'm sure that list just kept growing. And
Oh, yeah, sure.
so Catherine contacted me, geez, year and a half, 2 years ago now, about this. One of the things that I personally believe is we don't have enough art in our park system. We don't have enough of those sculpture and really, you know, focus beautiful things. And when we talked about that outdoor stage down at First Street, you know, we talked about that being a piece of art. So I thought this would be kind of a unique way of adding some art to the park, while also tying in the historical value, which I think is a very prominent and important part of our community. And then I wasn't able to attend that walkthrough, but one of the messages I kept trying to put out was we love these new things, but they've got to be maintenance friendly and not put more work on it, so that when all this money is expended, all this work is done, in 20 years, who's going to care for it? And so I think what's being presented is pretty sustainable.
Oh, yeah, I applaud you. Nice job, you know, putting this together. I like the artistic look of it. I think it's just a draw. I mean, it's like, there's nothing, I mean, I think you've done a really good job. I think it's gonna add a lot to that area. People love that, you know, especially being able to put your phone, the code, you look it up and then download, I mean, look at it. Well thought.
Chris and I might have broke some don't cross the yellow or the orange, you know, construction line when you guys make stabilization.
You can tell a lot of work has been put into this. You guys
Figure out what to
you
do
did a
with it.
great job, so,
Thanks.
very nice.
We're really excited about it. And Jeff, to your point about the sustainability side of it too, these panels are actually, they're called an aluminum dye bond, so it's actually a full color print that you can lay right on them. They're designed to basically be, right now what we're thinking, like what, bolted to an angle frame that'll be welded to the actual, to these specific pieces, and the other ones will just be through bolted on the higher ones where you're looking at it more vertically. But if one of these 7x14 panels happened to break, which one thing that we had already talked about was rounding the corners that is hanging off, just so there's not this natural, like, you know, I ran my head into it, or, you know, because it is at a little person height, and I've got little people, so, you know, my little people would probably end up running into that knowing them. So having the corners rounded, but each one of these would be, I mean, probably $50 to replace. The idea is to actually have a few of them for each one. So obviously the first one will be printed out and we'll apply it, but then to have one or two spares of each of those, just for, it's not a matter of if it's a matter of when they break.
Right.
We're hopefully able to replace them, again, fairly quick and
Just the
cheaply.
plaque, the writing? You're just talking about the writing replacing, or is the whole thing?
Yeah, well,
It would be the whole, this entire 7x14 panel would actually be detached, and then a new one would be put in its place. Yeah.
Perfect.
I like it. Commission members, got any comments at all? or-
I think it's very cool. We definitely need art.
Very interesting.
It is, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the child safety issue, because I have 4 young ones running around, and they would try to climb, or I don't even know what they would do, but they would do something.
Well, and we've been talking about how exactly the best way to, you know, what you don't see here is actually what Chris and I are working on now, and that is what's under the ground that you can't see. and actually continuing the steel piece on so it fans out in the ground about 2 feet, and then there's another, so it almost looks like a rocket tail that is buried, so it's hard to rock left, right. I mean, so it has some ability to hopefully withstand vandalism.
It'll be tested. I'm sure.
Oh yes, I am certain. Yeah.
I mean, that's the unfortunate part. I mean, you got to count on vandalism happening. Hope it doesn't, but I mean, as long as we have replacements and give it the best chance. So.
Well, and Chris can speak to. I mean, this steel like this in a public art setting. I mean, that natural patina that it has over time. And Chris has done a lot of work in that, right? And having something like this that will just naturally weather, where we're not having to worry about, my kids, they would run around that arc and slap their hand against every single one as they go. I mean, so that's, we're trying to build in some of that already. And what are we thinking for width right now, I think, or thickness?
3/8 to 1/2 inch.
Yeah. So, I mean, these would be pretty...
What's the timeline?
Ideally, we are hoping for an around Memorial Day
This year?
kickoff of this thing. We have most of these pieces. We understand how much steel we need, working on the profiling. The larger uprights, those have already been, those are pretty much ready to be cut. They'll be water jet cut. And these will also create a really interesting reflection pattern as well when light, penetrates through them on the opposing ground and sidewalk. But, from here, really it's just a matter of kind of finalizing, okay, material spec, cost. The tribal representation has looked at this. They're all really excited about it. Everyone, CDB's excited about it. So
We're excited about it.
yeah, it's just a matter of ideally taking any feedback that you guys may have, and then provide an update to City Council. And as long as everything seems to be good from that standpoint, we checked with planning and zoning, and there was no real issue that they said from this site standpoint. Height, material, everything they said looked pretty good. I met with Zach, and
Looks like you've done all your work, basically. I mean,
now it's just now it's a matter of putting it in the ground, which will be. We had mentioned that at the original walkthrough, and I talked to Brandon a couple times, and Jeff, that's something you and I will have to circle around on, and that is, just installation of these, making sure that they are placed appropriately for, making sure that Parks is coordinated with where they're going from spacing to make sure that, mowers and everything, it can be, so that still needs to all be.
I don't think he
finalized,
could have
but-
picked a better spot, to be quite honest with you, to put this at. I mean, it just joins everything together, so.
Can you put sculptures in every park?
Yeah. Can we work on that?
We can try. I mean, it sounds like a good time, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
We've had a ton of fun working on this. This has been a really cool project to work on, and it's one piece to a big piece. And the thing that we like about this is the fact that this will be the home of this large cultural tourism piece in our community, which, has received, accolades throughout the state at various levels for, just.
I can just see this being expanded, to be quite honest with you, so, a nice model for you, so. Just, do we have to approve this as a commission?
I think it would be appropriate to either support or not support it, because when they take it to city council, it adds weight if it has your support.
Yeah, I make a motion to support. Second?
Second.
Okay, Liz, second, so, very good, nice job. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I look forward to this coming up. So,
Absolutely.
we got a lot going on over that way, so.
There's-
We got the disc golf course being put in, and we got that sculpture. It's gonna be a nice addition to that side, so, thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The real shining star in this is when the sun hits these pieces, much like it does that colonnaded trees down there.
Yeah,
Adds even more to it.
Yeah.
The shadow play with it, so.
it's exactly everything the Parks Commission is trying to do, as far as our parks and stuff. Like, Kelly jokes, but we'd love to have stuff like this in every park, some type of addition, so it's a nice start for us, so we appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Very
If
good.
Thank you for your time.
you have any questions, don't hesitate to
All right,
reach
very
out to
good.
myself or Tim.
We got the Spicer Group doing the MDNR Trust Fund Grant.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for all the IT. Fix up here.
Oh, yes.
Well, while he's setting that up, can I do just a couple housekeeping things for the minutes? Who made the motion to approve the agenda?
I did.
Either way.
Kelly did. And who would have supported that?
Karen, did you sort it
I think we both did.
at the same time?
What's your name, Karen?
I'll give you both credit.
Did you vote on approving the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so who made that motion? Tim? Who supported that?
I did.
Liz?
Get that to Liz.
And that was that a 4-0 vote?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Good job.
8-0 vote.
You're welcome, Jeff.
So while they're getting this loaded up, I guess we're there. As you're aware, we've been working on this project for about 3.5 years. This is the North River Walk, so adjacent to Memorial Park. There's portions of that park, specifically the wood walkway and decking down at the bottom, that is so deteriorated that it absolutely cannot be repaired any longer. And we have closed that off now. There are also portions of the park that have substantial bricks missing from the retaining walls, bricks missing from the walkways, and the landscaping is extremely overgrown, and the barrier-free access is not optimum. So as opposed to years ago, I started looking at trying to fund just certain portions to be replaced or upgraded, and concluded that what this park needs is a complete redo and full overhaul. So we've been working with Spicer for a couple years. We made a application to the DNR to grant fund a portion of this project, and we were not in the funding range. That was 2 years ago. The last year, we were not allowed to apply for a DNR grant because the 5-year master plan for the parks had expired. And we were also not allowed to upgrade in that 5-year plan on our own because it's tied in with the countywide initiative where all the municipalities in the county have 5-year plans that were all completed at the same time. They were all submitted at the same time, so the state would not allow us to break up and go on our own and get it done. So we were a year behind in that process. 2 weeks ago, the state did notify us that our 5-year plan has been officially approved. Even after the plan that you submitted was done, there was a tremendous amount of paperwork that they wanted from us, but we were able to scramble and get that in. So we are now eligible and plan to submit our grant application before April 1st, next month. That's the due date. So some of the things that we are still working on in order to complete that is in Thursday, so in 2 days, we are meeting with a representative from the DNR on site to discuss this project. We are trying to collect letters of support from everybody that we can. And we have reviewed our previous application and have really dived into where we think we can enhance the application and increase our points in the way that the state scores it. One of the things that I haven't been able to identify deals with the ADA concept, and most bigger communities have an organization, a formalized organization that you would work with on something like this, or at least garner their support. We don't have anything like that local, so we're trying to find a group or individuals that might, might be able to support this and give us a letter to that effect. So Sean Middleton's going to kind of walk through what the improvements are and what's being proposed. The overall project cost is about $500,000. So this is a pretty big deal. The matching money for this project has been already budgeted in a capital improvement bond that was sold 2 years ago. However, costs have gone up substantially. And we think that we need to up our match amount in order to score more points with DNR. So we've actually had conversations with the Community Foundation about doing an application for this, and they are actually have encouraged us to do so. But then we also have had some internal discussions about requesting City Council use some of our American Recovery Funds to help support this, some of the overage and some of the additional match money. Want to walk through it?
Yeah, I think just again, my name's Sean Middleton with Spicer Group. I think I've met several of you before. Our planners that are working on this are at a parks conference. So if they were around, they would probably help me do this presentation, but I can give you the highlights. One thing just to add on to what Jeff said is, so we applied 2 years ago for the trust fund, and we were just a couple points short, and it was a very competitive year. We apply for these grants all over the state, and we're really familiar with the scoring, and we just kind of fell short. And there was 2 or 3 areas. One was the match, potentially. One was some ADA accessibility, and one was some sustainability, stormwater management type items, which now we've incorporated, and I'll go over that briefly. The real sad news is the next year, last year, they, which we couldn't apply for, there was extra money, and so there was more grants given out. So we kind of had some bad timing.
We would have been funded last year,
really?
no doubt, yeah.
No doubt. So,
Yeah.
but I guess everything happens for a reason, so we got it. We've tweaked it a little bit, and hopefully got some improvements here. So I know that's impossible to read what's in front of you. What I'm gonna do, can you see the screens there, or do you need to turn around? Okay. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna zoom in on this right-hand corner here. Let's see if I know what I'm doing here. Zoom in.
I know it's kind of weird when we look at this because it's like we're not paying attention, but it's right in front of us. It's kind of a different, like, you want to keep looking there, but it's right here.
So I thought I just kind of hit some elements. There's a few things that maybe aren't on this list, but these are like the big kind of hitters. And just in perspective here, we are submitting this grant application. We're at the very beginning, so we're really, there's no design. This is a concept, so we can get some rough costs. It's kind of that beginning level. So we're looking for input when we go through this, looking for feedback. The grant application, goes in. There's a whole design process. There'll be opportunities for refinement and fine tuning it. But these are kind of big picture. So, one of the first item is, as everybody's aware, the vegetation and landscaping is kind of out of control. It's just completely out of control, overgrown. And so this would really get into cutting that all back, pulling a lot of it out, and re-landscaping it. So the areas that you'd see in green on this map in general kind of incorporate that. They're in vicinity of the walkways. There's where either existing vegetation is. We would, and this isn't perfect, but it gives you an idea of where we do the removals, and the whole landscape plan. That isn't in this. That's part of the design. There'll be plantings to pick out, and whether they're native or not. So it's just stating that we're going to look at doing that. It's a little cumbersome. I don't have my glasses on too. I apologize. I really got to zoom in. So in terms of the walks, so there's basically out there's pavers, and then there's a lot of timber stairs, and the boardwalks, and everybody knows the boardwalks are deteriorated. All that surface stuff is in bad shape. The pavers have settled and they've got tripping issues. And so we would look at removing all of those pavers and replace with concrete sidewalk. Now, that could be stained or stamped if we want to try and, make it look a little nicer, but ideally, in terms of longevity, maintenance, and ADA accessibility, it's our best approach. And honestly, as opposed to PVC decking on boardwalks, it's probably actually cheaper. So any place where we're in contact at grade, we'll be looking at using concrete. The retaining walls out there, which are basically broken, I think you probably have all seen this, so I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the broken concrete retaining walls, a lot of pieces are missing. The intent would be to remove those and replace with a landscape block, something textured that would be like you'd see at a Lowe's or something, just their standard blocks. They're 2 to 4 feet tall, so they're not a lot of load on them, so we don't have to get too carried away with exactly what that wall would look like. The boardwalk I mentioned, we're looking at, we don't know exactly what the material would be, but either something similar to what we did on the Riverwalk, that little section there. I think you've probably seen that little piece we redid there.
At the west end.
At the west end, right down from the overlook. That's PVC. That's a very long lasting product, but there's other products, composite. The DNR will look to us for really sustainable materials. So they might compare the sustainability of a PVC to a wood product with composite in it, and that all will in the design process may come up. So it's kind of left open, and we try to use conservative cost for whatever that boardwalk surface is. And this would literally replace any place that is boardwalk along, and I'll zoom out just to show that again.
So our goal is to not put boardwalk back because of the high maintenance values. The pilot project we did down at the west end with the PVC, we're very happy with. We think it's got good longevity, it's got slip resistance, and so that's something that we've incorporated here, which obviously would drive up the cost, but it also checks that sustainability box that the DNR is looking for.
In our maintenance box as well. So the gray on here is where we're proposing concrete, and then the brown on here where we're proposing boardwalks. So you can see the boardwalk, we try to limit it as much as possible, and it's typically in areas that are on the edge or hanging over the steep slope. So that's the thinking as to why it's there. So any place in brown you're seeing here would be related to installing boardwalk. While I'm here, this down in the lower left here is an existing wooden boardwalk fishing platform. It's in rough shape. Yeah. And we need to, one of our issues that came up in the review when DNR was looking at it was they would like accessibility to a fishing platform. So we originally looked at the center one, but the problem with that is it's very high. It's about 10 feet above the water and it's away from it. So it's not ideal for a fishing platform.
And all the fish are down at
the
one
fish
on
are by
left.
the bridge, right?
By the bridge.
So we're looking at this, and actually what we may do here, since this is all sheet pile, is remove the wooden boardwalk and install a concrete at grade. And of course it'll have a rail and everything. It'll be grades that are ADA accessible at this location. And that also will help drop it another foot to get us even closer to the water. The problem is getting here. There's the steps that get there right now. And so what we're looking at doing is extending from this platform, which you can get here accessible all the way down here, is to bring this boardwalk all the way back along this edge and down. And then that would tie in. And the grades, look like they're fine for doing that. We'll have to confirm some of that with survey work. But
So one of the interesting things is in order to score points for universal design, it requires you to have universal accessibility to each element of the project. So if we leave out that one fishing pier, we don't get points. And that's what happened the first time around.
Gotcha.
In order to incorporate that into the project, then we have to find a new path to it, which drives up the cost, but it's worthwhile. And the other option is to eliminate that fishing platform altogether, but it is very heavily used.
Yeah.
I like accommodating that. We should in everything we do. You know, in the future, should always accommodate that.
We always try,
Yeah.
but on a riverbank, it's the most challenging because you've got so much relief and topography.
Kind of similar to the boardwalks, there's existing stairs that are wooden, also have a lot of disrepair. We're looking at potentially using concrete on those. They would have a heavy broomed finish or textured finish, so they weren't slippery. But they would, longevity would be significant. They would be nothing we'd have to worry about for a long time. And then I'm going to get into a little bit into some stormwater management items here. So I'll zoom out because you can see it a little better. So today, this parking lot, and I may be missing a pipe or two here, at least this section of the parking lot drains into a couple catch basins that discharge literally right under this boardwalk overlook area. It's a corrugated metal pipe. You can see it if you go out there and look down at it. What we like to do, there's a historical, if you remember this too, there's a kind of a half pipe, quarter pipe concrete liner that was there probably for erosion control or stormwater.
It's like a brick line ditch.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the joints have all separated. It's definitely not serving its purpose anymore. So what we're looking at doing is removing that, kind of creating a...
That's historical.
Well, then we'll tie into it. So, and right adjacent to it, or where it's at, we would install basically along bioswale or infiltration swale or ditch or rain garden, whatever name you want to put to it. So we can route some water there, capture it, and infiltrate it, and it'd have plantings in it that could have nutrient uptake and could kind of just help clean the water. And what we're looking at doing is intercepting that pipe that's coming down the hill. We'd put a structure in and divert it into this long swale. It'd fill up to some point. If it was a small storm, it'd just infiltrate in the ground. If it was a bigger storm, it'd overflow at the end and discharge to the river. So that would be, we think there's a lot of points for that because we're basically draining a parking lot which has a lot of pollution. There is a couple other small swale areas we're looking at doing in between these boardwalks here because they're kind of downstream of our concrete we're putting in. And that would just allow us to catch a little of that water and infiltrate it. Those would be a lot smaller scale because just the local rainwater.
So back in the day, Jeff, they used to have boat slips there.
I think there was a factory there.
Really? Yeah, boat slips.
And I think that there's evidence of piling that was probably for a dock there. But I've never personally seen the photos of that.
Yeah, my cousin was a big fisher. His charter boat was along that lake.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I probably could find some pictures for you. But yeah.
That wasn't Century Boat, was it?
So, no, Century Boat was where Century Terrace is.
Oh. Oh, I thought it was
Which
a restaurant.
I've lived here my whole life, and 2 years ago I figured out Century Terrace was derived from the Century Boat factory that used to be there.
Hey.
Takes me a while, but I get it.
On that note, we did get from MSU Archives aerial photography that's now in the GIS system. It starts in 1938, and it's pretty interesting.
Oh, we'll have to look on that.
Yeah, because I think we can do a check there on that. So those are the main elements that we're looking at doing. We've got the accessibility to that fishing platform. We need to get some support letters. We're going to council, is that next week?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday for approval, if, granted, assuming that you'd want us to proceed from this meeting on. We have, and then it goes through a process, and it's a long, I don't know if you're familiar with trust fund money, but it takes a little while to get, you submit, and then they score you. There's an opportunity to improve your score. You resubmit, and then your selection, and you're well into late summer, And you're really looking at construction in '23 is really the windows you get into with these grants, from a timeline standpoint. So that's kind of a really basic sense what we're looking at doing. Jeff mentioned the cost, adding this boardwalk, just materials in general. Construction is more, it's crazy, to be honest with you, what's happening with materials and costs and labor. It's
So needed.
What's
Basically, it's not usable right anymore.
what's the material between the two walkways, the concrete walkway and the wood walkway? It's a gray, is it just,
That would be a concrete, whether it's stained or stamped, but it would be concrete, ADA accessible slope. So it'd be basically a sidewalk. Along where it's gray, is that?
yeah,
Then these little pads here would be the same thing.
no, where it says 595 and 590?
Those are elevations.
Like the hill, right?
It's just
Yeah,
the hill?
Oh, yes, it's just the hill, yes.
Okay.
That's the slope of the hill. Those lines are the slope of the hill.
so the line represents a foot of elevation change. Each line is another foot.
So it's just gonna be grass or
Right.
landscaping material?
Basically what it is today.
Yeah, that probably won't have much change there unless, yeah, that's a good question, though.
And then it's just gonna tie into the existing band shell. We'll not do much to that. It'll just kind of remain the same.
Correct.
Yeah, we would tie into at least maybe this staircase on this side, improve it. Trust funds don't actually fund amphitheaters. Like they're
Yeah,
listed.
the JCs are I'm working with them on some improvements to the band shell itself. They're gonna do a couple work sessions this spring, and they've got some donated materials, and then we're gonna help them with some stuff to get that cleaned up for the summer concert series.
Was the big, no, go ahead.
Is that ADA compliant? Is there any access to the band shell area? In that regard?
The only route is all the way from Washington Street. And I'm not sure that it's compliant today. It will be after this project.
The band shell will be compliant after this? That's good.
There will be ADA access, but it comes all the way,
Side.
You have to go a long ways.
yeah, you have to go all the way up from Washington
You can get
Street.
there.
Yeah, you can get there.
One thing that wasn't mentioned, I don't think you have it in your estimate, was the lighting.
Oh, yes.
So there's another, I think it was 50,000 that we wanted to add lighting. Personally, I think it would be a jewel
Oh, yeah.
at night to look from the downtown side. But the other important factor for me personally is the safety factor, because right now it's not safe to go in there at night. The bushes are so overgrown. We've had this discussion. We get a lot of people hiding out, sleeping, and I want this to be a beautiful centerpiece to the downtown.
Very good.
Looks nice.
Great. Are there plans to keep going?
There is provisions that allow for it, but there's no plan. There's no place to go past the band shell right now, but the city owns up to the bridge, and we would have to get special permits to cross the MDOT property. Going underneath Maple Street Bridge, when the condominium was redeveloped there, Edgewater, we did retain an easement for a future river walk if it ever went that direction. The next section of property all the way up to the pump station is actually owned by the city today, and we have that for sale, but we would retain a river walk right to that. Then there's where the pump station is actually a privately owned lot that goes from 6th Avenue down to the river, and we have easements for the sewer features that are there, but not for any public access. And then we've got Century Terrace and the Housing Commission property after that. On the south side, going to the east, past the Chamber of Commerce, we don't have anything in place behind the American Legion, but I do believe that we have an easement for the Consumers Energy property that would go past the railroad bridge and then to Manistee Lake. So when we applied for the EDA grant, that was part of the conversation. Should we focus this on expanding it? And we kind of stepped back and said, the community showed that we need to be able to take care of what we have first. So we chose to make upgrades to the current Riverwalk with that grant.
Yeah. Great.
Very good. Nice presentation.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve,
Support, yes.
support. Very good, nice job.
Thank you.
That's
Vote.
exciting.
When will you, when did you say you
vote?
applied for
Yes.
this?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
When
Opposed?
would you apply for this?
It's due the end of the month.
2 weeks.
Excellent.
2 weeks. I think at the city council meeting next week, we're having a public hearing on it and then a resolution of support from them.
Very good, nice job.
So,
I don't think we have any roundtable. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Karen? Very good. Mayor, you may step forward.